Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Kuala Lumpur and welcome to the 2015 ALSMA annual conference. This year we are in Malaysia, and I hope you get some time also to visit this country, which is really a beautiful place. I hope you have enjoyed the last evening's dinner. It was sponsored by Yext, and I hope you also enjoyed the agenda that we have, which is quite tight, but we'll try our best to keep it in time. After our conference last year, we conducted the usual post-conference survey, and what we learned was that although the majority of the feedback was positive, which was good, delegates wanted to hear more about regional cases and studies and companies on what the companies are doing to really change their business model and changing the way they do business. With the team, it's all about execution. We want to bring you more Asian examples of companies that are successfully diversifying from the core Yellow Pages business, and to show you more services and even tools that will help you to achieve that. We hope that on Friday, when you leave the conference, you'll have something to bring home and to bring to your companies, and that you didn't waste your time and money here in this conference. Today's conference was only possible due to a joint effort of several individuals and companies. First, I would like to thank Charles Laughlin, as well as Jose Lema and Neil Polacek, our conference committee member, Charlie Lin, our co-organizer, Yellow Pages Malaysia, our conference coordinator, Dr. MC, and of course our sponsors, Yext, ASOS, Telecom Malaysia, Infomedia, Teamify, Buzzboard, Camilio, Moon Valley, and Drive, National Pen. I'd like also to thank all the delegates that came from, of course, all over Asia, but also US, Europe, and even Africa. And I'd also like to thank Pong Bautista, Bingo Diago, and Mike Tantoko, our secretary, for all the support they give to the association in Manila. Last but not least, I'd like to thank personally Lynn. I guess by now all of you know Lynn. Lynn is the one that keeps the whole thing running, so she's fantastic, and thank you very much, Lynn. So, not even 5 minutes, so we're keeping time already. Jose Lema will start with one of the survey, the first time that we actually conducted a survey here with some of the ALSMA members. Jose Lema will start with the results of that survey, and I hope you enjoy the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
For those of you that don't know me, I've been in the Yellow Pages industry since 1982. Of course, I'm not that old. But I started in the Yellow Pages in sales in Puerto Rico, and I've had an opportunity to work almost everywhere, from Puerto Rico, Japan, Italy, Belgium, Mexico, Portugal, the US, and I've been able to learn quite a bit from what has been happening, particularly in the last 15 to 20 years. That's the time that companies in the Yellow Pages business have considered that they have been doing a transformation. So last year when we finished the conference, I made a recommendation to Oscar to gather a little bit of benchmark information about what's happening in the Asia Pacific region, because when you come to these trade associations, you would like to go with a feeling of what is actually happening in the marketplace. The objectives for the research were to develop an industry profile for Asia, to provide you members of ALSMA with benchmarking information, to stimulate in some way exchange of information between the different companies, and to improve the image of the industry and also its performance. We use a questionnaire that we send to all the member companies, asking for standardized information that we could actually compare from one market to another. We only ask for percentages of behavior. We didn't look for absolute numbers. So what you will be seeing here today are going to be trends. We're not going to be analyzing specific numbers from any particular country. In respect for privacy, we have not identified the name of the companies. That was part of the agreement. We have only listed them with a letter, but for every single chart, the letter corresponds to the same company. So at least you can make a comparison of some of the different performance factors. You will see a lot of numbers. The objective is not that you memorize any of the numbers, although you will have a test at the end of the day. The objective really is for you to look at trends. We have used color codes. So when you see red, because in different cultures, red means some different things. When you see red in the charts, it's going to mean that the performance has been negative or lower than the year before. If the color is green, it means that it's positive or better than the year before. If it's black, it means that the performance is flat or in line with the year before. So just focus on the amount of red or the amount of green that you see in the charts to more or less form an idea of what is actually happening. If we take a look first at what's happening with print, we look at the circulation of yearbooks. Actually, 9 companies participated in this survey. We invited 15. 13 actually confirmed they were going to participate, and 9 sent us all the information to be able to do the analysis. So when you look at what has happened, if we take the year 2010 as the basis, we have in yellow pages 70% of the circulation we had then, and we have 80% of the page count that we have in yellow pages. So that's a decline in circulation of about 30%. When we look at print business-wide, we have 14% decline in the number of pages and 17% in the total circulation. And as you know, one of the core principles of yellow pages before was that our value as an industry was to bring comprehensive data to our markets and general distribution. So you can form your idea of what's happening out there. This is not unique to Asia. We saw exactly the same behavior in the US, and we saw that the same behavior in Europe. When we look at print revenue evolution, on average, print revenues are 82% of what they were in 2010. That's for those 9 companies that participated in the research. And that ranges between 34% and 144%, with an average decline in 2014 of 6%. Actually, in 2014, 7 out of 9 companies had negative performance in print. When we look at what has happened with digital, on average, digital revenues are 162% of what they were in 2010, ranging from 82% to 225%. And actually, the company that had the highest performance in the last 3 years had a 17% decline in 2014. In 2014, digital growth declined to 104% from 127%. So we are seeing a decline in the rate of growth of digital revenues. 8 out of 9 companies experienced a decline in the growth rate. On average, digital share of total revenues fell 3% in 2014 and stands at 26%. So when we look at the last 3 years, it's basically flat. It ranges from a top of 81% of revenues and a low of 6% of revenues. There is no surprise that for advertisers and for sales force, there is an enormous level of confusion. This is just a summary of the product line that we have available in the different companies that are participating in this survey. And each one of those products behind has a lot of other features and functionality that the salespeople have to talk about to the advertiser. Each product represents or the level of complexity when combined with price-based bundle programs makes it impossible for advertisers to know what is the value of what they're actually buying. This is not unique to your territory in Asia. There is a need for a simplified product offer and stronger focus on value selling. When we look at after sales care, only 2 of 9 companies that participated in the survey reported that they proactively provide any digital statistics or performance information to their advertisers. And of course, not all advertisers are equal. We don't need to provide more information that the advertiser needs, but there are a lot of advertisers out there that actually are looking for performance information. And if not for the sake of the advertiser, at least we as publishers should know how our products are performing. The confusion we see today in Asia about the value of what is being brought leads the same behavior that we saw in Europe and the US. And it is that print and digital eventually starts behaving exactly the same way, because the performance is determined by the value perceived of the leading product in the portfolio, which is print. And this is a chart about the performance for 3 years of a group of companies in Europe, and we see that the percentage of retained revenues, both in terms of numbers of advertisers and in terms of revenues, is exactly that for digital and for print. And we see that in the participating companies, total ARPA growth for 2014 was 108%. We see the same thing when we look at digital. ARPA growth for digital was 110%. So in Asia, we are seeing exactly the same starting to happen. While the revenue retention rate has stabilized at 87 to 88%, the customer base has continued to erode in Asia. The companies that are participating in the survey, if we take 2010 as a base, by 2014, we have ended up with 65% of the client base. That means we lost, in those 3 years, 35% of our clients. And that ranges from 33% to 90%. All markets declined in 2014. With the churn that we see, pressure is generating new sales. That's where the pressure is. On average, 17% of advertisers are new advertisers every year. And as you know, new advertisers are more volatile than long-term advertisers. We know by experience that by the year 3, by the 3rd year, 75% of new advertisers will have been lost. If we consider that we have what we have seen so far, which is increasing ARPA, high churning revenues, dominance of more complex bundled sales programs that have been sold on price and not on value, a lack of understanding of advertisers of the value of what they are buying, more new advertisers, a higher number of alternatives for advertisers, for the SMEs in the markets to advertise, and the limited success of Europe-based companies in attracting non-traditional advertiser segments, we can predict that revenue loss will accelerate in the same way that it happened in Europe and in the US. Of course, this is not a prediction. I don't come here to give you bad news, but this is what the statistics are telling. Of course, you will do something about it, so this doesn't take place, I'm sure. Now, adding more products to the portfolio and the difficulty in renewing has had an impact on the sales force. On average, 84% of the sales force is field sales, and the proportion is growing. 3% in 2013, 105% in 2014. If we take 2010 as a base, on average, a rep handled in 2014, 84% of the accounts they handled in 2010. So if they handled 100 in 2010, they handled 84 in 2014. This has an impact on sales cost, as you know. US and European companies have focused on simplifying processes and acquiring new tools to address productivity. Now 60% of company employees are in sales functions and 40% in support functions. The average for participating companies for the participating companies, these 9 publishers in Asia, is 45%, and it ranges between 61% and 25% in sales. With increasing demand in sales, an effort will be required to simplify processes and to free resources from low-value creation functions. I talked about value creation a number of times. The dominant bundle sales approach sustains a lack of understanding of what is brought and the value that it creates. The lack of sophistication of SME segment leads to evaluate all digital investments based on perceived traffic generation. But the volume of traffic that is being generated by most Yellow Pages publishers today will not support the revenue levels required from the digital offer. This is a big problem for Asia. Traffic to EYP has on average slowed down to 114% in 2014, and the challenge will be to do two things concurrently. One, to have very aggressive traffic growth, and second, to introduce products and services that the value base is not based on traffic, but on the value of the service. And traffic generation is not going to be easy. On average, 73% of the traffic to EYP comes from third parties. While the development of the EYP platform is important, it is necessary to have a better balance in the allocation of resources for content development in Asia. The findings are not surprising. And I don't think they're a result of bad luck. It is because we have the same structural challenges that we had in Europe and Asia in the US and the Asia Pacific. We see declining overall revenues influenced by quick performance, shrinking customer base with higher ARPA, reduced digital revenue growth, increased complexity in the product offer, an unclear value proposition to advertisers, reduced productivity of the sales force, and reduced growth in digital traffic. And more than anything, dependency on search engines. So there is a need for very aggressive and yet realistic plans with a clear roadmap on how to achieve them. Clear focus has to be on priority areas to simplify the product offer, have a clear value proposition, focus on the sales organization. This was a big problem in Asia and in the US. They didn't pay any attention to the sales organization. The publishers destroyed their sales organization and their credibility as an employer in the marketplace, and you can still avoid doing that in Asia. We need effective business tools and an obsession with fulfilling the customer promise. Two important assets we have in this industry is the sales force and it's a relationship with the advertisers. Everything else is a commodity. If we lose those two things, we will have no opportunity in the future. So there is a need for flawless execution, focus on priorities with strong leadership and effective governance structures. I hope that what you will learn in the next 2 days will help you fill the blanks and to be able to develop plans that are more effective to go back to growth in your regions. Thank you.